Hello, this is Dr. Jeff Craig, Superintendent for the West Aurora Schools, and today we have visiting us in our podcast, Officer Chris Weaver. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I appreciate the invite.
Well, we're excited because we never know what we're going to get from you, so we're excited about this discussion.
I'm excited too. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, I saw this picture. Anna had sent me this picture with someone cherishing this mug, and so we want to probe down this a little bit.
Lord have mercy.
Most in our listening audience have seen this movement called Weaver Fever, or I guess it's hashtag Weaver Fever. What's that all about?
I think it's just because the two rhyme. I don't really know. It's obviously it's got to do with some of the videos that I posted out on social media, and and I think people appreciate the message, and I think they also appreciate seeing a police officer that is not afraid to, give tips and be out there and be in the public eye, even though we are each and every day. When you put it out on social media like that, you open yourself to a lot of criticism that, can just be sent out at the push of a button. But I think people appreciate that, and I think because there's been a few times too that I've shared some feelings that I've had over past events, and I think people appreciate the vulnerability that shows that all officers have, not just myself. But I don't know. I think that's where it comes from.
And probably the message is received probably in a more positive way, or at least a genuine way, just by how you deliver the message. Yeah. Whether it's through song or whether it's just through lightheartedness. I mean, it's not the stern, waggle of the finger that, you're following the police officer direction.
Correct. Yeah, I just enjoy opening up each message, if I can, with, a little bit of music. Let's break the ice. Maybe it's a Monday morning and everybody's, I don't really feel like getting up today or going out to work. So let's just break it up. Let's throw a little music in there, and then let's get into something informative, whether it be a crime prevention tip or something that's recently happened that we need information on in the city, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I think, we're going to get into that music piece here in just a little bit, but I wanted to get into some of the where you come from information to share with our community. You were a 1997 West Aurora High School grad. That seems like a lifetime ago, but it was a lifetime after I graduated, so I can't talk much about it. Tell us a little bit about your experiences in the school district, what you did, some of those influences, impacts.
Yeah, I came to the school district probably a little bit later than some others. I started in the school district in the 6th grade. I had gone to Holy Angels on Aurora's west side for K through 5, and my brother and my two brothers and my sister as well. We all started out at Holy Angels, and then around 5th grade for me, 3rd grade for my younger brother, we made the swap. We had moved a little farther west, and my older brother and sister had moved from Holy Angels into West Aurora High School. So my parents kind of did the same thing with us. So for me, I started 6th grade at Freeman, and that's probably one of my fondest memories.
Really?
Is making that transition from uniforms. You know what I mean? And just the atmosphere of the Catholic school, and nothing against it at all, but being able to wear what clothes I wanted, and the structure of it was a little bit different, and seeing my friends and riding the bus, because I used to walk to school every day when I was at Holy Angels, so taking a bus for the first time, that was all kind of new to me, and it was exciting. So I got to go with my friends from the neighborhood, because I think I was one of the only ones in my neighborhood that had gone to Catholic school. But then going to public school with the kids in my neighborhood, it was really neat. And then just made that transition from Freeman, 6th grade, back when it was in elementary school, to Washington and then to West. Some of the best things were the relationships that I made with my friends, the teachers. Some of the most influential teachers I ever had were at West Aurora High School and Washington and Freeman. I'll never forget, as you guys know, got my degree in theater, and I'd been performing ever since I was a kid. And I'll never forget that Mr. Olson, Marty Olson, when I was in 6th grade at Freeman, I was kind of goofing around, and he had asked me if I liked being the class clown. And, But I'll never forget that he let me, he and Miss Riley and Mr. Langston, or Mr. Lang, that Mr. Olson, Miss Riley, Mr. Lang, they let me be creative. And it wasn't really, yes, there was a time for business, but they understood that I like to perform, and they would let me do that in different ways. And so they kind of let me explore, without being distracting.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Kind of facilitated your aspirations.
Sure. And then, moving on to junior high, it was like Mr. Fagan in band and Mrs. Papadolius in choir. And many others, Mr. Redling.
Some of our famous Aurora names.
Yeah. Also, just letting me be creative, without it taking away from my purpose to get an education as well. And then, as moving on to West Aurora High School with Donna Letster and Mrs. Papadolius and Ken Ruffalo later on. I had known Ken since I was a child because he was good friends with my older brother. So I always appreciated teachers that, for me, if you were to set me in a corner with a book and say, all right, read this, it wouldn't have worked for me.
Sure.
It wasn't my style. I couldn't have done that. But there were teachers there that took me to a higher level because they understood, the way that I learned, that I needed to be active or act it out. You know what I mean? Take the words from the page and create something in the physical presence.
You think that was something that helped our kids flourish, or was that an exception to the rule where teachers met kids where they were and didn't try to get them to conform to some rigid belief of here's how school should be? I mean, you describe a very customized or personalized education.
Yeah.
Where people knew who you were, and let's let him express and demonstrate knowledge in his own way.
Sure.
Do you think that was the norm, or was that something exceptional at that time?
I think it's something that's changed over time. Because I did have teachers that, all right, it's you're in here and this is the curriculum and this is what we're going to do and this is how I want it done, and I appreciate that. I really do. But there was those special teachers to me that understood how I learned, because I was not a sit here and read it. I was more of, I guess you would say, an auditory learner. Mm-hmm. There was a teacher, even when I was at Holy Angels, Ann Heckel, who would play music while you were reading. And that, to me, I'll never forget her, ever. She would play just different types of music in her classroom while you were reading, and it would help me relax. And I don't know, it just opened up something where I was able to sit and calm down and just relax and do it. But like I said, there are some teachers that, I wouldn't want to say strict, and they weren't strict and mean and anything like that. It was just, they had their way of teaching, and sometimes I gravitated towards other teachers. Sure. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate the process, but it was just, nothing against that. It was just not my style of learning.
That's why we hire a variety, right?
Yeah, and I think, throughout the years, I've learned to appreciate both, especially with discipline when it comes to law enforcement.
So speaking of that, if I remember hearing, you were yearning to get away from uniforms out of Holy Angels to get to a public school setting where you could wear what you wanted.
Right.
And then now as an adult, you're back in a uniform.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, you really know how to cut to the core of me, Dr. Craig. Hold on. Let me lay down on this couch here, and we'll talk about it. But
we'll smoke a pipe and get the steno pad out.
Yeah.
So not only did you graduate from West Aurora High School,
yes,
but your wife is also a West Aurora grad.
She is. And
your children are enrolled in our schools.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that decision-making and what their experiences have been, not only as your kids in our system, but your wife and some of the takeaways she had maybe?
Yeah, and let me just start off by saying that the decision to, put our kids into District 129 was not one taken lightly, right? Mm. There are a lot of options out there for families, whether it be, public schools in the area, depending on where you live, of course. There's also private schools, and when you're a parent, for us, we knew what we had been through growing up, with 129 and what programs were available. And then, you just, especially working in the community, you see the different options and the progress that's made by, especially District 129, from the time we were kids until the time we are now parents. And at the time, we had been living outside of the district when our first son was born. And we made that decision to move into the district because firsthand experience, not only as a student, but being the resource officer at West High from 2012 to 2016, there is something for everyone in District 129. It doesn't matter, if you're academically inclined or musically inclined, whatever the case may be, there's something for you. I've never seen a program, or a school district with so many clubs, especially when you get to the high school, geared towards every child. There's really, it would kind of bother me a little bit when I come into contact as an SRO with a kid that, and I'd ask them, what are you involved in? What are you into? What do you do outside of school? What are your extracurricular activities? And they'd say, nothing. I'm not really interested in anything here. Or they'd say something, and there would be a club for that. That why don't you get involved? Get involved in the school because there's something for everyone here. It was an obvious choice just to come back to District 129 because there was something for everyone. We loved our education from 129, and we wanted our kids to have the same opportunities.
It's a great promotional flyer for us to put out there. It is. It's a great testimony. It's something that I wish I could have the opportunity to ask every parent in our district why choose here. And we've challenged some folks that, quite frankly, they've had their kids in parochial schools, and we've challenged them to come here and demystify what they think about our system.
And my parents will tell you too. With my older brother, he's about 10 years older than I am. He had started out at a private high school, and but he was the oldest, and he was at this private school, and not really struggling, but looking for a change. And my parents really sat down with him and said, "Well, where do you want to go?" He's like, "Oh, well, I want to go to West." So it's absolutely true. So they came over with a booklet of the classes he had been taking, and brought it over to the counselors at West High. And the counselors at West High said, "Absolutely, we have all of these, or can accommodate all of these, and here's what else we have on top of that." So they said, "All right, well, that's really a no-brainer. Let's bring them over." And then my sister made the transition, and then my younger brother and I made that transition as well.
No kidding.
Yep. Yeah, my parents, you ask them, to this day, they'll say it's one of the best decisions they ever made. Again, nothing against the other school.
Sure.
It was just what worked best for us.
You bet. So we fast forward you out of West High, and you graduated from Illinois State University.
Yes.
And you got an acting degree.
I did.
You did. Surprise, surprise, right?
I know.
But then you end up in law enforcement.
Correct.
Walk us or talk us through that thought process.
Sure. So growing up, all right, my mom was a performer. Always. She's always singing, always acting, always performing, for charitable functions and stuff like that. So there was always music and stuff like that in our house. She had been an actress, and so we always heard about that. And then my dad, the other half of that, was a graduate of Marmion Academy, and then had become a police cadet, one of the first police cadets in Aurora's history, and became an officer, and then a sergeant, a lieutenant, and so on and so forth. So you kind of take both of those, and and then you have
sense.
Me. And so growing up, I was always performing and loved performing, and I still do to this day. But as I went through college, different programs, I actually just ended up at Illinois State through auditioning for scholarships and things like that. But I had bounced around a little bit. I had gone to community college. I had gone to Wabansie. I had gone to Columbia and Chicago, and done some things out there. And when I finished up at Illinois State, it was around my junior year. I loved performing, but I did not like the business of it.
Sure.
Okay? The business side of being a product. And that's not like I'm taking this stand against the business kind of thing. It just wasn't for me. And I figured, you know what? I can perform for the rest of my life and be happy with performing. But I really need to do something more. And I always loved even as a kid, like we had a garage built on the back of our house, a detached garage, and it was built by APD.
Really?
It was my dad's friends, and they'd come over and they'd be up on top, putting the shingles on, doing all that stuff, yelling at me to go get them a hot dog or something and bring it back out. But anytime you needed something, those guys and girls were there. And I always appreciated that and respected that. And my dad would come home with his squad from time to time with his partner, Wayne Biles. And, there was just that, there was a connection there. And they were doing something for for the people of this community. To me, it wasn't just Aurora as a kid. It was this huge thing. These guys are, these big monster cops, and they're out there chasing bad guys. So that had always kind of been in the back of my mind. And that's really half the battle, is understanding the lifestyle, in my opinion. But having grown up in it and gone to the different Christmas parties and stuff like that, and growing up with other cops' kids, you just kind of understand that Dad's not always going to be at Christmas or at your birthday party or this or that. And it was just, you understood it and you respected it. So in the back of my mind, to come back to, junior year of college and not really liking the whole business aspect of the acting thing, I had always grown up in a family of service with my mom had become a nurse and my dad as an officer. So to me, it was like, all right, well, what about law enforcement? Is it something that I can do? First of all, it had always been there, so it's something that I wanted to try. And I figured, you know what, if I go for it and I fail, then okay, that's all right. I'll try something else.
Sure, but at least you'll know.
Right, at least I'll know. So I expressed that to my parents and told them, look, this is what I'm thinking. And my dad was never one to say, all right, yeah, you guys got to grow up and be a cop. No, my parents always let us choose our own path, whatever the case may be, as long as it was legal and, But anyway. So my parents, they never pushed you in one way or another, and they just supported you in whatever your endeavor was. So my dad kind of set me up with a couple different departments to do a ride-along, just to get a taste of it, and I was hooked.
So how old were you when you did that ride-along?
19.
Okay.
I was 19. Maybe even 20, but 19, 20, and I rode with several different departments, and Aurora was my hometown, and it was awesome from the very first call, and so I was hooked right there, and I started testing I was a super senior in college.
Sure.
Because I transferred so much, I lost a credit here or there.
You love going to school.
Loved it. Loved it. I loved college. Don't get me wrong, college was great, and not even for
career.
the social aspects. I mean, I really liked studying what I wanted to study.
Yeah.
But after those ride-alongs, and I was wrapping up my degree, and I started testing around my 21st birthday. I started testing at different departments, and I ended up getting hired at Northern Illinois University Police Department. Worked there for about a year. They put me through the academy, and I'm very appreciative to them. I got a lot of good training out of there. And then Aurora kind of called and said, hey, your number's up. Would you like to come out this way? So, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And I've been here since March 24, 2003.
Wow.
So
that's a pretty good run so far. Yeah. So you talked a little bit about your acting and your passion for performing.
Sure.
Do you think that some of those skill sets has benefited you in your current role as police officer?
All of them. And I just when you break down what acting is, right? You take a script, you take even improvisation for that matter. But we'll just go with scripted acting. You take a script and you break it down emotionally, and you break it down word for word on what you think the writer is what their intent is from the page to the stage. And when you do that, when you study that, when you allow yourself to open up to all the different types of emotions that this character could be feeling, you really start to understand who you are.
Sure.
And it opens up so many different doors for, character development and stuff like that. So that's just at the basics, right? That's your acting 101 stuff. But once you do open that up, you kind of build that memory, and you start creating all these different characters, and you start building that memory of different emotions and how to connect with people. And then when you transition that to law enforcement, if you go to a call and somebody is pouring their heart out to you, and granted, now you need to gather factual information and
Sure.
evidence and the basics, the police 101 stuff, but you're able then to connect to them emotionally as well. You can empathize with people, even though you haven't been in their exact shoes in the situation that they're going through now. You're able to, tap into that creative portion that you've already opened up in the past and truly connect with somebody. So I think that's where that comes in. And then with improvisation, you're constantly tasked with thinking outside the box. And there's a great connection there with police work. You know, there are circumstances that we come across every day that can be a first for you.
Yeah.
Even in 17, 20, 25 years of law enforcement, you're never going to see it all, you know, and know it all. It'll never happen. So with improvisation, you know, you're constantly tasked with yes and, basically, is the rule. You know, when somebody presents you with a circumstance, your response is always yes and, let's build on that. So in law enforcement, you know, you may be, all right, here's this call. Okay, I accept that. And now what are we going to do about it? How can we fix it? You know, what are our resources available to us to achieve that goal? So I think it all ties in.
Absolutely.
To answer your question.
So kind of expounding on that a little bit as well, you know, when we see you on your videos and you're delivering a very important message, but in your own lyrical way.
Sure.
The Weaver Fever way. It looks like you're having just a phenomenal time, but we know that the job of a police officer is very stressful. Put yourself in some pretty precarious situations, often dangerous situations. So a couple of follow-ups to that. How do you find ways to kind of de-stress from the job? And then what are some ways that you go about to just kind of keep things light?
Yeah, so you have to keep things light, okay? Because, you know, there'll be a lot of times in law enforcement where people want to attack either physically or verbally you just based on what you represent. And you can't take it personally, okay? They're not attacking you as a person. You know, maybe it's the uniform, or maybe it's, you know, just because you're there.
Sure.
You know, and so they focus that on you. So, and you can't take that personally. They don't actually know you as a person and who you are, where you've been, what your experiences have been like, who you've lost in the past, you know, all that stuff. So you can't take it personally. So for me, you know, what do I do to de-stress when I've had one of those days? I play music, play guitar, I sing with some fellow alum.
Sure.
Yeah. And my brother's one of them, and Ken Ruffalo and Pat Roney.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, we jam out. We play music. We talk about it. Try to explore different ways to play different songs. It's that creative aspect, you know. It just comes right back, and we're all kind of in the same boat where, you know, we've all got our day jobs and the things that we like to do and the stresses that come along with that.
Absolutely. But
we all, you know, have this common ground where we get together and play music, and that's one of the things that I love to do. On the family side, you know, once I get home, they always say like, oh, you know, you're a cop 24/7. It's very true, you know, because if I see something, I'm out with my family, I'm going to do something to try to better the situation. However, those stresses of it, I don't want to bring home to my family. When I'm home and, you know, with my wife and my kids, I want to be at the game. I want to be present, not just physically. You know, mentally, I need to be present for them as well. I need to cheer them on, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, their choir concerts, whatever the case may be. Make a conscious decision to be present in their lives and what they're doing. And that's my number one de-stressor right there is my family.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. It's a great philosophy. It's hard to do. It's more difficult than you think.
It is. It's a conscious decision.
Absolutely.
And it has to be.
I applaud you for being able to do that.
Thank you.
All right, so here's a bizarre, and I'm not sure if there's something to this. Do you have a favorite restaurant here in Aurora?
Who told you about this?
I'm not sure. I would hate to divulge my source of information, but do you have a favorite restaurant here in Aurora?
I do, and it's a fast food chain.
Okay, and is there a standing go-to order for that?
There is. It's a number 2 soft shell with a Diet Pepsi and a burrito supreme. It's Taco Bell. I love Taco Bell. I know that we don't. I don't know. Can we get them to sponsor your podcast? But
we might.
It's Taco Bell on Galena. Ever since it opened when we were in high school.
If you're shouting out, you might as well just go all in, right?
No, yeah. Ever since it opened when I was in high school, we would go right after school before like either rehearsal or a concert or a show or something like that, and always a number 2 soft shell with a Diet Pepsi and a burrito supreme. That's the 3 supreme tacos. I've never swayed, ever.
Now, do you take your family to Taco Bell as well, or is this just a
I will hit that drive-through regularly. When I was the SRO, I would hit that drive-through after every football game and every basketball game. And when my wife was pregnant with our oldest, that was our go-to as well. I would work afternoon shift and get off at 11 and call her and, what do you want? Oh, Nacho Supreme. Sounds great. And I'm going to get a number 2 soft shell with a Diet Pepsi and a Burrito Supreme. And that's it. It's just what it is.
So are you well known there?
You know what? I probably because I've seen former students that work in the window, and I recognize them. They recognize me, and I tell them I'm proud of them for working, first of all, and thank you for not doing anything to my food. but no, it's been there for a long time, and I don't know, it's my favorite.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was wondering where that was going.
I can't deny it.
That was interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah, I don't know who gave you that, but as soon as I read it in the pre-screening here,
probably sussed him out a little bit there, didn't
you?
Yeah. I'm sure you can have a little conversation with that individual afterwards.
It's okay.
So did you face any personal hurdles in your life?
Oh, sure. We all do.
And what are some things that you've done to get through those? I think that's something that's very germane to where we are with our kids right now in District 129, is trying to build resilience, trying to build confidence, trying to encourage them not to shut down or quit when things get difficult.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a basis for why we ask that about how do you approach challenges, or whether they're personal or professional, and then how do you help resolve them? How do you respond to those?
I've faced both personal and professional challenges on a daily basis. But to go a little deeper into that, I've been very fortunate to have great role models. Not only that, I was born into a great family, spiritually, faith-wise. Always grew up going to church, and all that stuff, and discussing that and learning it as a family. So I've always had that in my background, which is incredible. To have. And I'm incredibly fortunate to have had, my dad as a phenomenal role model, and my mom as well. But I know not everybody has that. When you face, for me, like when I face a hurdle, either personally or professionally, there are times where, of course I'm scared. I'm scared to screw up. I'm scared to fail. I'm scared of, if I fail, what next? Did I put too much stake into this? And now I've lost it, then what? But what I've come to learn over the years is, you just have to face it. Like the very first time I did the physical test for the police department at the police academy for NIU, I failed. I failed to run. And there's a different, set of exercises that you have to do. And I had just finished the sit-up portion, stood up, and a guy pointed at me and said, "All right, get in this group and then go." So I just finished, it wasn't his fault.
Sure.
It was my fault. I wasn't physically prepared, to go from one exercise to the other, which over time I've learned that you need to be prepared. You know what you're getting yourself into, prepare appropriately for it. And then when the unexpected comes, you're even, better prepared to handle that. Is it going to go perfectly? Is it going to go smoothly? No. It's okay if you fail, but work at fixing it for the future. I had 2 days to come back and pass that run, and I did. I just put it in my mind's eye that I wasn't going to fail.
Sure.
And actually, the image that was in my head was a badge, and what that represented. And I kept telling myself as I'm running, heaving, just, do you want it or not? And if you want it, you need to hustle, So, and that was day one of the police academy.
That's good advice for all of our folks out there, that's for sure.
It just, to me, it's like, I can't stand it when people say failure is not an option. Failure happens, in my opinion, and it's what you do afterwards that makes you a better person, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't win everything. You're not going to get everything. You're not going to succeed at everything. You're not going to agree with everybody,
I think there's a lot of sentiment out there that people can associate with when they think about being afraid to fail. being afraid to make a mistake in someone's eyes.
Sure.
But know that it's okay because, if you really want to be successful, come back and try it again.
Right.
And again and again until you get there.
Yep.
And I think you've kind of just shared your perspective on that I think will help a lot of folks as well. You talked a little bit about being prepared and to be able to own the fact that you can control some of your own destiny. What are some things that you wish you had known when you first started out as a police officer?
And somebody told me this later on in my career, but early on I wished I had known and actually known that it's a marathon and not a sprint. I was so excited early on, to have gotten past the academy, to have gotten past the FTO program and the in-house training and all that stuff that comes along with it. Because it's not like, you get hired and start tomorrow.
Right.
You get hired, you do in-house, you go to the academy for a few months, then you have to come back and you go through field training for 4 months. And then you're on probation. So, but I think early on, I wanted too much too soon. It was like, all right, I made it, and now what? I want this now. Okay, I want this now. And instead, I should have just learned to be patient and learn the job, early on. There's just the foundation of it before I started grasping at things that were either to the side
Which
or
is
up
not
above
unnatural for someone that's new into a profession or in their
Sure.
youth. I mean, naturally they aspire and they want things to happen at a quicker pace.
Right.
So how many years down the road did you get this sage advice about the marathon versus the sprint?
I'd say about 3 years.
Okay.
3 years into it, and I had put in for a couple things that I didn't get.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a slap in the face, like, hey, you're not going to get that right now. It was more of a you're not ready.
Yeah.
You really need to understand where you're at right now before you can go anywhere else. And it kind of reminds me of John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership and the position. So I had the position. Now I hadn't even come close to the permission yet, to earning the respect of others and the permission to lead somebody else in something else.
So in the educational world, you get that teacher that finishes their first year of teaching and wants to know how soon can they get to be the principal.
Right. That's kind of, yeah, exactly.
Understood. That's a great advice, and I hope people heard that loud and clear. Regardless of what field or endeavor you pursue, I think there's some wisdom in enjoying where you are and gleaning everything that you can from that opportunity, and knowing that that's just something you put in your backpack of resources for the next opportunity.
Correct.
And don't worry about jumping steps so fast and hopping from position to position.
Right.
But learn as much as you can and then take it and use it.
Correct.
So I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. I'm going to ask you with your police officer hat and then your citizen of Aurora hat.
Sure.
What's a message that you would want to share to everyone listening as an Aurora police officer?
Well, always help others before you help yourselves. But that comes from videos. I would say call us. Because there are often times that we don't get called until after the fact, or something has gone so far beyond somebody else's control where we could have been an instrumental portion of it early on. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Where it's, I'll take for instance like social media. There are instances where something gets said, and it goes out onto social media, and then next thing you know, it's shared. It's like that. What's that game, Operator, telephone, or wherever, where the message gets sent and sent and sent, and it starts breaking down and becoming convoluted, and blows up into something much bigger than it needed to be in the early stages. And oftentimes, it does become a police matter, but people don't usually contact us until later on in the process. What that does for us is it creates a huge endeavor with trying to track people down and find out what the initial event or incident even was, now that we're sifting through rumor and trying to get to factual information. And I think portions of that are because, people want to handle it on their own. Maybe they don't think it's a police issue right away, and They want to see for themselves what's rumor and what's factual. But I beg of them to let us in on square one.
Interesting. That would be a good bumper sticker. APD, call us.
Call us. Yeah, because it's there are oftentimes, even as an SRO, where you find out much later into something than you wish, and you wish you were notified right away.
You spend a lot more time unraveling.
Correct. Absolutely correct. So call us.
So dad, husband, family man.
Yes, sir.
John Q. Citizen.
Yes.
What's your message you want to share from that perspective?
We kind of talked about it before, and I would say be present. Not just physically, but be there, be present. Whether you're the husband, the father, the citizen, the a wife, a mother, whatever the case may be, make a conscious decision to. I can't say decision. Make a conscious decision to be present, to be there, be involved. If you're a parent, get involved in your kids' school. Get involved and not you. Does that mean you have to join the PTA and all that stuff? No, but go to parent-teacher conferences if you can.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Be there. Go through their backpacks. My wife and I do that. You have to go through there because if you don't, next thing you know, it's a month later and there's a stack of papers in there. And where did this permission slip come from? Well, I need it signed by tomorrow. Well, guess what? It was due a week ago and now you're not going. So I could go on and on, but be present. And like I said, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, and just do your best.
So 2 bumper stickers. Police officer, call us.
Call us.
Citizen, be present.
Be present.
Love it. Nothing but concise. That's awesome. So now I'm going to ask you to be a little more philosophical. How would you coach, mentor, counsel someone who is contemplating going into the world of law enforcement?
I'd ask them first if the line at the fire department was shorter.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love fire. I actually
you may have to defend that with your brethren in the fire department.
I have to defend it by saying that before I did ride-alongs, I went and toured the fire stations first. So at the suggestion of my father. But anyway,
probably because they eat better. They don't go to Taco Bell.
No, they cook for themselves and they do a great job too. It's awesome when you stop in like mid-shift and they're cooking dinner. It's like, whoa, man, that looks delicious. And then their alarm goes off and they're like, well, enjoy because we got to go handle this. But no, in all seriousness, to somebody new, I would say, or somebody that's even thinking about it, I would tell them first off, be prepared to see what real life looks like. Philosophically, I guess. Especially in law enforcement, right? Or first responders, for that matter, even our firemen, our EMS personnel. What I mean by that is people don't usually call us when they have their best day.
Yep.
It's always an emergency, or, maybe if it's not an emergency to you, it's an emergency to them, and it's real. And, they may not be able to articulate everything right away. They just know that they need you, and they know that they need you right now, and that you need to get there. And so I would tell them, be prepared to see people at their worst and do everything that you can to make it better.
It's great. It's I'm not sure a lot of folks would go through that thought process because they probably see the allure of being a police officer, as you were excited when you
Sure.
got through your training pieces. But you're right, people are at their most vulnerable when they reach out to emergency services of any kind. Mm-hmm. And even in the school district, we see people that are in challenging crisis for a variety of reasons, and it's not always the pretty side.
Right.
But you're right. That's why we do what we do, and I applaud you for sharing that because I think it's something that people need to be very thoughtful when they go into roles that are important to our community, such as law enforcement. So
yeah, when I say it may not be an emergency to you, but to somebody else. I mean, there was a time, and I'll use this as an example. I forget what year it was that we had that nasty blizzard come through. Was that like 2011 maybe or so, somewhere around there? But I'm driving down Route 59 coming up to New York Street. Uh-huh. And the roadway for the most part was okay. It was a lot of the side streets with the drift snow that was really bad. And I came up to the intersection. There was a car in the middle of the intersection. And it was just sitting there. And I'm in a Ford, what do we have? Crown Vic. And so that's rear-wheel drive and terrible in the snow. But we were doing okay. So, and here's this little car sitting in the middle of the intersection. No particular like snow mounds around it, and lights on. So I throw my squad lights on. I get out and I walk up to the window, and the driver rolls down the window, and they are frozen stiff in fear and shock. Like, I can't go anywhere. My car will not move. Like, all you have to do is put your foot on the gas and turn the wheel. You're going to be okay. And driver did that, and they were on their way, and just like, thank you so much, you saved me. It's like, to me, that's, I'm out and about in the snow all the time and doing this kind of thing. But this situation of just being in the snow, and it was heavy, right? No doubt about it. But that fear had overcome, the driver, and that was an emergency right then and there.
You had those words of encouragement.
Right.
That's awesome.
Just do that. Understand that.
This has been it's been insightful. It's a different side of you that we don't always get to see. We know the jovial,
right,
gregarious, all those polysyllabic words,
the shoulders kind of stuff. Yeah.
Are there any final thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners that maybe we didn't cover today, or maybe there was a question that you hoped I would probe and didn't get there?
When I say at the end of my videos, help others before you help yourselves, I really mean it. And it's not just a catchphrase or something that I came up with just to throw at the end of my video. I legitimately mean, think of others before you think of yourself. To me, there's nothing greater that a human can do than to, put somebody else ahead of themselves. So, that's just it for me,
So we've had several bumper stickers here today. And maybe your people pick up on it. So we've got Collis from APD. We've got from all around guy around town, Chris Weaver says, be present.
Right.
And then help others before helping yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
Words to live by. Well, Officer Weaver, we just really, really appreciate you taking the time to come visit with us today, and I hope people take away some great messages and then learn a little more about who you are and what you're about and what makes you tick. This has been exciting.
It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to share with everyone, please remember you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and the TuneIn Radio app. I would encourage you to subscribe to our broadcast, and please give us your feedback so we can continue to improve our discussions. Officer Chris Weaver, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Craig. I appreciate you.
You bet.